Hello, everyone. My name is Jackie Sieber. Welcome to a Worldly Experience interview. A little bit about me. I'm a senior at University of Pittsburgh, where I study media and professional communications, and I minor in music. And I come all the way from Pittsburgh. How fun. But today we're talking to Jose Muniain.
Oh.
He is originally from Spain, and he came to Pittsburgh 24 years ago with the passion to create his own company here. And he is a former film teacher at higher institutions, but now he is a digital storyteller and content producer. And we're going to talk about his online creation, makemedia.net. But how are you today, Jose?
Good, thank you for having me.
Yeah, I'm really excited. What do you do? What does your average day look like as a content producer?
Well, as you mentioned, I am a, I wanted to give you more background. I am a video content strategist and producer, and I also still, I'm active in the teaching part, and I'm teaching film history. My title as a video content strategist and producer is a kind of an evolution from what I usually been for many years, that is a creative director and producer. Terminology is changing, because ways of interact with media and create content is changing, and right now I market myself as a content strategist mainly because before there was only a limited amount of channels to show your work, but now there are too many different channels, and that's why I'm working more with clients now, developing strategies for their content. It's not like just doing one video. You have to create like a sequential storytelling, because you engage with your audience. Maybe you design something that is for a 3 months period, and then you have to create this kind of content that fit these channels, and every channel has a different kind of narrative in a way, for the lack of a better word right now. So usually my life is doing commercial work, mainly corporate communication and marketing. Also doing also the teaching aspect that is very important to me, and also my independent work. So there's kind of a balance for me, in that way. So everything revolves around film, video, or storytelling, I would say. And my day, it really depends my day, in terms of if I have a production going, if I am in the concept design aspect of it, or in pre-production, getting ready for the production, or the video production per se, the shooting aspect, or the post-production, And also, if I'm not doing all of that, then I will be doing networking, doing personal, or working on my personal projects, or learning new techniques. Last year I started to work on 360 video, things like that. So that's I don't know if a little bit of, I guess I answered your question more or less.
Yeah, and you mentioned freelance. What's it like doing freelance? Is it stressful? Do you like it? Could you explain a little more about that?
Well, for me, I do like it. I worked for 15 years in a production company, an established production company in downtown Pittsburgh, as a creative director and producer. And eventually I moved to be a freelance, creating this company called Make Media, make-media.net is the website. And because I wanted to do things on my own way, and at some point things for me it was very important at a time, be aligned with my identity as a filmmaker, that I have total control of the projects I wanted to do. As a matter of fact, I started not to do less corporate work and do more educational work. I mean, Pittsburgh has excellent universities that also create startup companies. So I wanted to work in that kind of arena, working with new products and new businesses coming up from these universities and working with the startup companies. So I do like to work with startup companies. And I've been doing it. I mean, it's stressful because you have to find your own work. Probably that's the least favorite part. Looking for clients and things like that. But when you find it, you establish it. You are not representing another company. You are representing yourself, and that becomes something that for me was very fulfilling. Walk into a room and be in charge of what is going to be my approach to the project, etc. So I do like it. It is true now because of the situation that we are in. Video production, it was not really the best time to be involved with. But yes, I will say I like it.
Wow, yeah, that's very admirable that you go through and you like to do your own thing. And it seems that you're very successful at it. So my next question would be, how did you know you would like this kind of work? And you can focus on the freelance part, or we can talk about the content producer, whatever you'd like, or the strategies.
Okay. Well, what I would say is I am a journalist by trade. I'm probably the thing that I, consider myself is a storyteller, that I move from, the journalistic part, writing part to more visual storytelling. And also I would say that, coming from Europe, there I was an avid film goer, and in Europe, again, there is a little more tradition that film and video is not just an entertainment tool or a marketing or a corporate communication tool. It's also part of the culture, it's also a self-expression kind of tool. So I was very interested in all of that. And I think that's why my projects, or the projects that I do, my personal projects have to have that more like this element of personal expression or more social kind of oriented projects, or even experimental. I like to also work in the experimental film because it's a challenge to work when doing non-narrative work, because you exercise different kind of muscles and you create this, this different kind of challenge for you. So I guess going back to the beginning of your question, what I like about the work is the storytelling part.
Interesting. Yeah. And is it with journalism, with your interest in journalism, how do you usually prepare yourself with creating films or working with other like content? Like what's your routine when it comes to that?
I guess it has to do sometimes with where are you in your in your life, and also what is around you. For example, I don't know, to be, maybe using an example, I did a project called Cake that deals with the subject of eviction. But I wanted to also explore the social media channels, how film and social media channels interact. And in that particular case, I didn't want it to just, usually, you create content and you upload it to a channel. In this case, I wanted to explore the idea of creating an audience before the video existed. And I went online and I created a Twitter campaign where I was asking people for ideas to make a film. Not because I wanted to do somebody else's idea, but I wanted to use social media to have a kind of a brainstorm, people suggest things that maybe they will, interest me somehow. So in this project, I created this Twitter campaign called, hashtag make a script, where I received ideas, and there was an idea that was kind of interesting to me, and then I developed the script with the person who was suggesting that idea, and everything was done via Twitter. As a matter of fact, the film had another challenge. It needed to be 140 seconds, trying to mimic this and be able to demonstrate that you can do a project that is engaging and emotional in that particular in 140 seconds. So after the script was done, then I started the production part, and looking for a location and an actor, and we did this video called Cake, but it started out as a Twitter campaign. So I really like the idea to explore social media and content development, and come up with this kind of ways of connecting both, And in this case, there was, I already have, as I said before, I had an audience before the film already existed. So when I start showing the film, I already have an audience ready there to watch it. So I don't know if I really answered your question. I mean, I use an example because every project is different. My last project that has been now is currently in film festivals, and it's already been in 6 or 7 film festivals. It's called Garbage, and it has to do with it's a story about race in America. And I work with a Black writer, and I wanted to do fiction in this case, because after doing a lot of the documentary work, I had this thing about when you're doing documentary, you are looking from the outside in, and when you are doing fiction, you are in the story. And for me, the story is first. I mean, if you don't have a story, you really, I don't know, you cannot move forward, really. You have to have a story. The story is first, cast is second, and finally, all the cinematography and etc. But in my particular method, and not only mine obviously, but I wanted to make sure that I had a story, and then move to the cast. The cast, they can embody that story, because if you don't have the right cast, you are done. I mean, you don't have a story, you are done. You don't have a right cast, you are done. And then you have a good crew and collaborators in cinematography and sound and editing and all of that. You can put that together and make something that is worth it. But again, if you don't have a story or you don't have the right cast, you probably are done.
Wow. Yeah. I have 2 questions from you. So the first one would be, that's a lot of variety. Like, what are the skills that you have that helps you to do such varied work? It sounds like you have a lot of creativity. What would you say are the main skills of pursuing your career and like making such authentic and raw material?
I guess you have to be curious. I mean, I don't know. I mean, just I do. As I said before, I'm a film goer. I mean, I watch a lot of films. I read. I go to galleries. I interact with artists. I mean, as a matter of fact, a lot of the work that I have done, it has to do with the creative process. To be present when it's happening, to learn about how the creative process goes for different kind of artists or mediums. So, and then, as I said, I mean, it really, I mean, for me, all my projects, they have this kind of a social component, what is around there. Because, I mean, as a filmmaker, I feel the responsibility, and in the world that we live in now, I don't think you can be you can be in the sidelines. Even you are part of the solution or part of the problem. So when I do my films and trying to, with that kind of responsibility, do films that that has to do with the social world, what is happening right now in the world. So yeah, I mean, I said I have about the films about the creative process, eviction, race, I don't know, much more. But anyway, but you understand what I'm saying, I guess.
Right. And it seems like you really rely on the community, especially the Pittsburgh community, since you're based here. What have you learned about the Pittsburgh community, and like what techniques have you picked up on really connecting with the city and just the overall culture?
Well, what I have to say about Pittsburgh is when I moved to Pittsburgh, I was already, a producer and working in Spain. Actually, I work in many countries in Europe. Always commercial work. So when I moved to Pittsburgh, is when I started my career as an independent filmmaker. I found Pittsburgh very inspirational. I found Pittsburgh as a great location. And also, I found that Pittsburgh, that you have access to, if you are interested in a subject, is very, usually it's easy to access to with the people who actually are involved on that subject. So also when I was, and people, people were very encouraging to develop your own project. So I said, one of the reasons in Pittsburgh is because I found this balance between doing commercial work and have the space and the subjects enough to stay here and produce work.
Wow, that's awesome. Could you talk a little more about PMI and your successful time there? Because you were the head of the production department. So,
Right.
And also I believe, and pardon if I got my information wrong, but this is where you achieved some Addies, right? The American
Advertising
Commercial Awards.
Yeah.
Yes, thank you.
Yes. Correct. So my work at PMI was extremely commercial. That has to do working with advertising agencies or direct with clients, helping advertising agencies to visualize their projects and hold their hands and working together to create commercials or corporate communication. So at PMI, as I said, because of my skill set, I wear these two hats as a creative director and producer. As a creative director, when you work with advertising agencies, you work more as a producers per se, with their creative directors, with their ideas, and you find a way to visualize those ideas. And when I was working direct with clients, I was working more as a creative director and producer. We were in charge to developing the ideas, to tell the story that the client wanted to was interested in telling. During that time, so I got awarded with some awards, including the American Advertising Award. But it was me, but also the team that I was working with. At that time, and probably because the nature of Worldly, I got to hire a lot of young people that wanted to get into this business. And one of the things that for me, I would like to share is when I hire somebody young, I usually hire more the attitude, more than what they know. I was assuming that they didn't know much. But it was very important to me that that person had the right attitude. That is a person that we wanted to work with. And also, one of the pieces of advice that I, not only in when I was hiring people, but also when I'm teaching, is if you really wanted to be a filmmaker, Um, I usually tell them to not have a plan B. You know what I mean? Because if you have a plan B, it's very easy that you're going to go to a plan B and plan C and plan D. So if you really want to do it, you know, you have to stay in that plan. You know, do not have a plan B. Just have that the plan of being a filmmaker. In my case, also in terms of my skill set, um, I was very aware of when I was designing a project. I was always very aware of the crew and the skills of the crew I had to work with. You know, so you design based on what skills they have. So you don't come up with a project that nobody has the right skill to do that. So it was for me the challenge of designing a project that takes advantage of the skills of the people who were in my team. And also a very important part of that is actually that is doable, that it can be done in the 3 days, 4 days, 5 days, 6 days, whatever was the budget. You know, it's very important that you design, but also design that, you know, something that is actually can be implemented in the time and taking advantage of the skills of the team that you have.
Yeah, and you mentioned that you mainly look for the attitude with the young people you hire. Can you explain what is that attitude?
Well, I think it's the fact that you recognize that you don't know much, but you are ready. You know, you are reliable, and I say you see something on that person that you want to have him around because you spend a lot of time together when you start a project. So it's kind of difficult for me to define a little more than that, but you have to have this right attitude of that you are reliable and you bring something to the table. But as I said, it was not as important to me that they're bringing to the table. You know, they are open and they are learning, and you know, they are helping, and they are there and they are available, and they deliver.
Oh, pardon. I would say aside from building the technical skills, would you say that's the most important thing for young people to learn to make it into this industry?
Well, I mean, if film or video production or content development. I mentioned before, I usually do. I've been doing this workshop on documentary work, and we don't see a camera until it's a 6 weeks workshop, and we don't see a camera until week 4. So sometimes people who wants to be filmmakers, they start already, you know, like buying cameras and things like that. That if you want to be a cameraman, of course, that you have to learn that trade, because film has this kind of trades, you know, that you have to learn equipment and software and things like that, and that is very important. And that's why film is kind of a teamwork, because there are many different skills that come into producing content. But for me, again, everything goes to the story. I mean, that is where you have to spend most of your time and energy, because after that, you find the story, you're going to find, you're going to have, finding a cameraman. And I do camera work, but I don't like it when I producing a project to be behind on the camera. Why? Because I wanted to, sometimes because you are interviewing people or observe, you want to be focused on the story and know that the technical aspect of making a video, So I'm a filmmaker and I don't use camera. I don't even, I have a camera that I use for location scout, things like that. But when I want, because at the end of the day, You know, you are spending 6 weeks preparing a project and 2 days shooting it. And usually you can access a cameraman who use the camera every day, that has gear, that has ideas, that, you know, so, but it's 2 days. So I think pre-production and preparing is really the most important part. And then, you know, if you are also a cameraman, you know, you do it. But if not, usually you want to have a, you know, a cameraman that is, you know, that knows what they do, and they can add to the project.
Right. Oh, that was a great answer. I was going to mention, since you work with PMI and also with your company in Spain, Ostra Delta, I believe it's pronounced.
Correct.
I was going to say, when you were doing the commercials there, how did that help you create your personal projects, and are they connected at all?
Well, I mentioned before that when I was in Spain, I didn't work much on my personal projects. I did watch a lot of films, and I was, you know, a film goer, and that was because you have to think that before film schools, people will learn film doing films or making films and watching films. I saw in this country, and that's why I guess I became also a film history teacher, that usually people who are in this media of becoming a filmmakers, a lot of them, they don't watch films, or they just watch, you know, whatever is recent is happening right now, and mainly entertainment. So I mean, it's like I wanted to be a writer and only read like bestsellers. You know what I mean? It's like, it's kind of odd to me. So when I was in Spain, I was learning the trade, you know, producing, coordinated teams, delivery, you know, like all that logistic aspect that has the production part of it. You know, helping the directors to accomplish their vision. So, and when I was in Spain, I was more like strictly a producer. And it's when I came to Pittsburgh when I started doing my working more in my independent work. But there I was kind of learning the techniques. Also, when I was working in Ostra Delta in Spain, we were focusing on developing branding for TV stations that has to do a lot with animation, you know, graphics and video. And at that time, graphics and video were in parallel lines. They were not meet, you know. And it was that time when doing this kind of work of developing branding for TV station, we wanted to bring graphics people and film people together to create that work. And also there was the change between analogic and digital, and that changed the game in terms of how much can you process an image, and also, you know, computer animation, things like that. So what I'm trying to say is that technology has a lot to do what can be accomplished, and you have to be very aware of the time, what technology is out there that is going to help you to accomplish, you know, or solve certain challenges that you have to do, or you know, illustrate what your great ideas. You know, I'm going to design this because I know it's doable. I know there's this technique that it can be used to accomplish that. So you have to be aware of can be done, you know, and the techniques that are out there. Doesn't mean you have to know how to do it, but you have to be, as a producer, aware of all of that, you know.
Right. What are the obstacles that you've had to overcome while you were entering in this field, and do you still face any today?
So obstacles. Well, I guess the main obstacle is believe in yourself, you know, in this kind of overcrowded field, in order to develop your style and your vision. And I mentioned before, and it probably also applies here, that this idea of not having a plan B, you know, right? Really be very stubborn about become a filmmaker and that. But I guess for me, is this idea that you can do it and believe in yourself and be confident. And still today something that I have to, you know, deal with it, you know. So I'm still a filmmaker, I guess. I don't know. I mean, how many years? You said, I don't know, I've been doing this for 30 years, I guess. So yeah, you have to really not have a plan B in order to stay in this sector.
Yeah. Speaking of which, you said it's important to be very stubborn to become a filmmaker. Do you think that film school is necessary for an individual to become a filmmaker?
It's certainly not necessary. Film schools give you, one of the things I say when I'm teaching, I ask my students, you know, at the beginning, usually because I teach in Pittsburgh, you know, different institutions in, you know, universities in Pittsburgh I've been over the years connected with, and I ask them, so what is the best film school that you can go? So people, you know, start thinking about it, and I say, you know, I don't know, you know, UCLA or, you know, New York Film School or things like that. And I said, no, the best film school is the one you are in, because it doesn't matter all the other ones. So it really is what you can do with the, you know, with your fellow students, and how hard are you going to work. So in that sense, I guess you don't need, I mean, I didn't go to film school, I mean, as an example. And as I said before, I don't know if I mentioned before, but yeah, before film schools, you learn to be a filmmaker, making films and watching films. And the watching films is something that I'm very, very adamant about it, you know. You have to know the work of filmmakers that came before you, and they were pushing this medium, you know, because it's very inspirational to see neo-realistic films or new age, nouvelle vague films, or other kind of movements. So that they are there, you know. I mean, the dogma movement in Denmark, things like that. I mean, it's so eye-opening. I see it all the time when I start sharing these films. Like they really are inspiring, and also the fact that film has this quality of being a window to other realities. You know, lately I've been showing a lot of Iranian films, and the students at the beginning they think they are not going to connect, and they are not, and they do. They really do, and that is, as I said, very inspirational, and also, and that's why I don't think, especially now with all this, I don't know, YouTube. I mean, again, because film has this other aspect of trade. I mean, you can learn camera or lighting or things like that, or at least have the basics, and then you have to go to a set and get yourself as a, you know, to work on a film as a production assistant or assistant cameraman or anything, and that's when you learn. As a matter of fact, when I'm teaching and I'm producing projects, I take, you know, I usually do like a kind of hybrid. Half of the team is kind of seasoned crew people that have been doing this for a while, and half of it is people who just starting. And they tell me all the time, okay, now I get it, or how much did I learn going to a set for 2 days? I mean, it's really eye-opening. So again, film school are great, but also you can do it without going to film school if you are practicing, because the secret, like for everything, is practice, you know. So you have to do, you have to produce, and then again, and you have to watch.
Yeah. What films or people have inspired you to pursue film, and what would you say your favorite part of this journey has been for you?
Again, my favorite part is being a storyteller, you know, and connect with audiences, either in my personal projects or even in my commercial projects, you know. I also love the editing part, especially when you do documentary work, because it is in the editing when you finally finish writing the story. And that's something that for me, I enjoy very, very much, you know, the part of the editing and creating, because film is the art of associations, you know, finding this, you know, association between images. They create a new meaning, you know, images that they don't have nothing to do, they don't have anything in common with each other, you know, and suddenly you put them together and you create a new meaning. That is always for me like you know, a very satisfactory aspect of working on a film.
Yeah, and I was gonna say, contrasting from your most favorite, what's your least favorite part of working on films? Or aren't there any? You just love all of it.
Oh yeah, they are, no, no question.
Okay.
No, I mean, they are. I mean, what I'm saying is like, I mean, the least favorite is like, you know, now that I'm working, I have, you know, in this my own production companies, you know, look for clients is always like not a favorite part. Or looking for grants or writing grants is difficult, especially because the grants has to do with my personal projects. And when I do, I mean, I do my commercial work, usually you know what you're going to do, what you are going to, you know, do before you actually do it, you know, because it's a very, you know, hard script, and you do pre-visualizations, so people know exactly what they're going to get, you know. And when I do my own personal work, I'm trying not to know where I'm going, you know. I have to have a premise, I have a story, but I like, you know, to kind of go there and not knowing, you know, and finding out as I do it, and be open to that. So there is also this different kind of, it's like a change in the, you know, the rules of the game are different. So I change the rules of the game when I work on commercial and when I work on my personal projects.
Yeah. So I want to shift more to the technological side and looking more towards the future. But what new forms or distribution channels do you think will be most important for the future of film?
Well, obviously, I would say that you know, all the streaming platforms, you know, that they are coming into play. They are you know, and also the social media channels. So um, I guess I would say that you have to be very aware of the specs of every channel. Not every content works for different channels. Um, but I guess the future, I guess the future is bright because it's so much content to produce. Um, and I mean, still today, I mean, I'm working on a project that is all still images. You know what I mean? So it's really, everything is open to create, and these new platforms, you can be more experimental, I mean, I think they are giving you the possibility of really come up with new ideas or new ways of making things. So right now there's more platforms than ever. I don't know which ones, but I mean, I guess the streaming channels are the ones who are dominating, and it makes things more exciting, because it's like it still is not set. It still is evolving. You know what I mean? It's like we are in the middle of something that is kind of continue evolving. You know, from TikTok to Netflix. I mean,
Yeah.
one thing that
When
I'm
you're talking,
just to
oh,
you know,
pardon.
the only element, you know, one thing that I'm experimenting myself is with the 360 video, you know, VR technologies, because there you have to you are designing content for just one person. You know, it's direct, it's personalized, and also in 360 video, there's no director in a way, because you have to, when the camera starts shooting, you have to disappear. You cannot give any directions or anything like that. Not even a cameraman is there. So it's more the idea of the producer, the pre-production, like it's always been the key of every project, no matter what the platform is. And here is this preparation. It's like you prepare, and then the camera start rolling, everybody disappear, and things start happening in front of the camera, and it is personalized, individualized. They're telling the story just to you, and that is an aspect for me that is very exciting. That has to do with new technology, and at the same time, there is so much that you have to learn, and it's learned by doing. So I've been producing now my third piece of on 360 video, because I find that very fascinating, the fact that this duality, you know, it's just you, and you also has, and when I was saying there is no director, because the director in a way is the person who's watching, because you are looking, you decide where you want to look, you know, and for how long, and you are kind of making those decisions. It's not a director, it's telling you look here and look there. um, so yeah, still is, and also that technology is available to anyone, you know what I mean? It's not like you know, only some people can use it. So anyway, the experimentation is an important part of my craft too. And also that experimentation in personal projects always goes back to commercial work, because sometimes when you're doing commercial work, you know, you don't want to do it, you don't want to maybe take those risks, but if you do it in your personal work and you explore, and you then you can show to your client this, and then you can say, yeah, I would like to do something like that, or have that, a component of that on my work. So it is very important that your personal work, this idea of experimentation is part of it.
Yeah, that's really interesting. Do you have any ideas for any virtual reality films yet, or is it just you're still in
Well, the last one I
the
did was
research?
it was working with dancers, you know, dance, you know, that you are in the middle of a dance. Um, so it's a very simple kind of idea, but you know, it's fascinating working with dancers and designing a dance for the camera, and the camera is actually the viewer, you know, so you can actually acknowledge that person. You don't do that when you are, you know, doing a film, or you are in the, or a dancer that is in the stage, because you know it's many people watching, so you don't acknowledge. But in this case, you have to design for just one person. So I was working on that. I am also preparing a project for you know, kind of experimental, because I'm doing interviews uh, with people. Um, but I mean, that person is then watching himself. You know, it's like let's see if I can explain. So is one person where you ask questions. You ask questions to yourself, basically, and then you are actually looking at yourself, answering that, and you are observing yourself. You are in the same room with yourself, basically. Another project that I've been working on a grant is actually working with immigrants. Immigrants, they have to move to Pittsburgh, I mean, in this case, Pittsburgh, because, and they cannot go back to their countries for political or economical reasons. They want to share their place, you know, that, you know, where they're coming from and certain places where they're coming from, you know, the kitchen of the grandmother or whatever, you know, different things. And they want to share that with their family, you know, because they cannot go there. So they can, in a way, when you do virtual reality, you can transport yourself to that space. So, you know, things, those are the two things that I'm kind of developing at the moment.
That is really interesting. Let me know when you finish it because I would love to view it.
But I also say I hate writing grants, so it's painful. It's painful.
Oh, okay. Another question I had going off of technology is that, you know, the good old drone cameras are up in the skies. Have you used drones yet for any commercial or film?
Yes. I mean, drones is great because they are widely available now. You know, there are tools right now. For example, drones, that you said. In my last film called Garbage, that has to do with it's a story about race in America, and everything happened most of the time in a house inside. So a drone, it was great because we could get the texture of that area, you know, just flying the drone, and it give you, you know, that information. So it's technology to the service of the story, not just to fly around. But it was very important to, you know, have this, not only see the area, but also the point of the story we are going to see is happening in many different places, you know, these many different houses. We're just going to focus on one, but that story is happening and all that. And then I guess the other piece of technology that is very available now and is really great is, you know, gimbals. You know, this technology that you can have your camera attached to the gimbal, and you can walk, and the camera is smooth. You know, it's not. You know, you can do these beautiful travelings, and the camera is very, very, very smooth. So that is also another piece of technology that is very, very helpful, and increase the production value of your project with you know, no cost.
Yeah, would you say that becoming a drone operator would be a growing job or something? Oh, pardon. I was going to say, is drone operator going to be a growing job?
Yeah, I mean, they are necessary, but as I mentioned before, for me, it's about the story, you know what I mean? And then you can, you know, the tools that you can use to tell your story, as I was pointing, you know, making, you know, is example, the film that I'm showing now called Garbage. But it is, you know, that's, again, this is the part of film that has this kind of a trade school kind of a aspect, that you have to learn, you know, certain kind of equipment, things like that. There is one thing right now that probably people expect when you hire a video person, that they know everything, every gadget and everything. And as I mentioned before, for me, that is not the way I operate. You know, I come in and we just work on the story and what we're going to tell and who's going to tell the story. Even if I do a corporate communication piece, I go and find, I know, and they tell, no, we're going to shoot it. Yeah, you know, we're going to shoot it in the conference room. I say, well, hold on. So I go there and I'm trying to find the right location, because locations are characters, you know, and they give a lot of information. And also, who is the person who can tell the story, you know? So I do pre-casting, pre-interviews until I find the person who is actually the right person to tell that story. So it's not about the camera they're going to bring. I mean, that comes at the end, you know. It's about all the other stuff you have to do to be ready with the camera, you know, when you are show up with the camera, everything is in place and you have the right story and the right casting and the right the right person who's going to tell the story, the right location, so many other things that they are important. But yes, we all need good crew people that, you know, that they can do drone work. I mean, absolutely.
Yeah. Um, how would you how would you suggest someone to get into this field? Because it seems like there's a lot of technical aspects and creativity and research. So it's a lot at once, but how would you suggest someone to get into this field if they are truly interested?
Sure. Um, well, as I said before, I mean, my ideal way is like watching films. You know what I mean? Like a really, you know, it's like being a writer. You have to write. You have to read a lot, first of all, you know, first. And then you have to write your own little stories. So again, we go back to the same thing. You're really interested, you have to watch a lot of films, but, you know, not just one kind of films. Like really be open to see films for different genres and nationalities. And making films, because now it's possible to just start doing, you know, to access technology to do it. And then if you want to be a cinematographer, of course, you know, I always, you know, I guess I talk all the time about my for the production and creative direction point of view and content creation. But if you want to be a cinematographer, of course, you have to practice and practice and practice, because there's no shortcut. You know, the only way to be good in cinematography is practicing, practicing and practicing. So I said, I'm not usually coming from the technical side, even if you have to be aware of what can be done, uh, and you have to know that. But I guess for me, I'm coming from, if I have to recommend someone who wants to get into this field, it's like I recommend watching films and making films. You know, even, you know, I said Cake, you know, I done films that are an hour, you know, an hour and 10 minutes, and films that are 140 seconds. You know what I mean? So because you have to be pragmatic, and, you know, for me to be a filmmaker, you have to produce films. And sometimes I don't have the budget, I don't have the time. So I come out with a project that is 140 seconds. But you learn a lot, you know, in terms of getting all the story in that short uh, amount of time. You know, it has its own, own challenge. But also that helps again when you do commercial work. You know,
Yeah.
usually they are, you know, you're working very short time.
Yeah. How would you say films such as Cake and other stories influence viewers that watch your work?
Could you repeat the question, please?
Yeah, no problem. How do you think your stories in films such as Cake influence viewers?
Well, one thing you learn when you make films um, is the moment you show the film, you lose control of it. The audience is going to make whatever they want to make of it. So you have to come to terms with that. I mean, there are films, you know, it's a film that I did called December. When I was in the film, I was Adam, and I was so it was a character, you know, it's mainly two characters, and the female character, I wanted to make the point that she was not the daughter of the other character. You know, she was not the daughter, and I said it like 3 times in the film. Well, when there's a Q&A, people always say, okay, because I really think she was the daughter. You know what I mean? So, because, and I was like, I really, it was frustrating, but at the same time, I said, that's just great. I mean, it's like, it has different lights and different interpretations and different, you know, because you bring your own background to it. And you just project there, you know, maybe you have a personal experience that for whatever reason applies to it. So one thing you have to learn is like when you know, show the work, you know, people are going to take whatever they want to take or interpret whatever they want to interpret. And you have to be, you know, that film was about, the concept of the film was about regrets. And I like the idea of using the short films to, you know, motivate audiences to, you know, think about their own lives and challenges and things like that. But you cannot be very literal about it. You know, there is more than one interpretation, and that's why, and that's what I like. I realize that that's what I like about films. They're layered and they're open. Because also, one thing that happened, I mean, a lot of the films that I do also, they are non-linear. Because when you want to connect with your audience, if you give them all the information, they usually people sit back and, all right, you're going to tell me everything, I don't have to think. But if you don't tell them all the information, or it is in a non-linear way that you have to make some work, it turns out that you have a much more engaged audience. That's, I think, most of the filmmakers, that's what they want when they are showing their films.
Yeah, well, we'll have to wrap it up, but thank you so much, Jose. This was a wonderful session to have with you.
Oh, I really enjoyed it.
Thank
Thank you
you.
very much.
Yeah.
Well, I would say muchas
Art.
gracias. Muchas gracias. I have to use my Spanish. I'm losing my Spanish now. You know, after many years being in the United States, my English is still not good, and now my Spanish is going bad. So, terrible.
Oh, no. Well, muchas gracias to you too. I don't know Spanish, but that's all I know. But thank you to everyone who joined in, and have a good night.